All right, welcome everybody back to Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. We are here on Labor Day, Monday night, September 1st. Week 1 is upon us in the NFL. Soon we will be watching Eagles, Cowboys, and we will roll on to week 1 as the Giants go down to the DC area to take on Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. We have so much to talk about as I enjoyed a brief break prior to the start of the 2025 NFL season. The Giants, of course, whittled down their roster to 53 men. We'll talk about what we liked, didn't like, what surprised us, what didn't about that, and how the team has come together going into week 1. But I definitely believe that the number one thing on my mind at this moment is the opportunity in front of the Giants as they go to, I believe it's called Northwest Stadium now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the Washington Commanders are a darling team for the NFL this season, and deservedly so. They earned it last year. Jayden Daniels, he goes into his second NFL season a top 5 MVP candidate. If you go by the odds makers, we're brought to you here, of course, by MyBookie Sportsbook. If you go on and you go to bet MVP of the NFL, Jayden Daniels staring you right in the face, along with a few other top names that would be household names anywhere, including guys like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. And this is the class that Jayden Daniels has elevated himself into that quickly. These are the expectations of a Washington team that dismantled the number 1 seed in the NFC last season, the Detroit Lions, on the road in Detroit in the Motor City. And then, yes, they get wiped out by the Philadelphia Eagles, who eventually go on to win the Super Bowl. But that's an NFC championship game berth with a rookie quarterback who is quickly becoming one of the bigger stars in the sport. And that's who the Giants draw in week 1. Now, you could look at that as a difficult draw for the Giants, as a challenging schedule, part of the hardest schedule in the league based on average record of your opponents all combined from last season. The Giants stand right there at the top, most difficult schedule in the league for 2025. But you can't think of it that way. You have to think of it as an opportunity. You have to think of it this way. If the Giants defeat Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders in week 1, they immediately become a relevant team. They immediately become a 1-0 team headed to Arlington, Texas to take on a Dallas Cowboys team that doesn't have Micah Parsons on its roster anymore. Don't minimize what type of excitement and momentum that kind of trajectory could have on a team. Now, that said, beating Washington, no easy thing, no easy task. Defeating Jayden Daniels, containing him, and having an answer for Washington on both sides of the ball, especially after they added some significant pieces, some players. There's Marshawn Lattimore, there's Laramie Tunsil, obviously some veterans like Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz return to complement Jayden Daniels and what he intends to elevate into. They got Terry McLaurin signed. He's back in that wide receiver room and on that offense. Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, all geared up with a year under their belt, a year of tape on guys like Malik Neighbors. And they have a home opener that they need to take care of, because then right after they take on the Giants, they quickly go to Green Bay on Thursday night to take on the Green Bay Packers and Micah Parsons' new team. Now, I center on Jayden Daniels and the Commanders here because you look at the type of player you're taking on here in Daniels. He is a dual threat quarterback who pushes the ball down the field, who plays with poise, who plays calmly, and who is quickly becoming one of the bigger stars in the sport. The Giants, on the other hand, are still a team in repair. They're still a franchise trying to find their way, but they're in year 4 of a regime that continues to ask for and earn, or ask for and receive, more time. But the clock is ticking on them to show some results. So they've patchworked something together going into this season that is led by a pass rush that includes Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau, that has a chance to wreck games, a chance to make the Giants relevant again, a chance to make the Giants a kind of team that, dare I say, are even feared on one side of the ball if they can get after these quarterbacks. So they have a chance to set that tone. If they can do it to Jayden Daniels, they can do it to most anyone in the league outside of a handful of quarterbacks who are head and shoulders above the rest as far as their accomplishments, their abilities, and the likelihood that they're going to do it again. At this point, you can probably even throw Jalen Hurts into the mix of those guys, of those names. But to do it to Daniels, to get Abdul Carter going, imagine the Giants beating Jayden Daniels in Washington on the road with Abdul Carter getting a sack, maybe a forced fumble, and with the Giants offense scoring 24 to 31 points. If you get a result like that going into Dallas with no Micah Parsons on that roster now, and DeMarvion Overshawn, their middle linebacker, a terrific player, injured and still out, rehabbing off of that ACL tear, you're looking at a golden opportunity for the Giants to announce themselves as a team to contend with not only in the NFC East, but in the 2025 season. Now, of course, that is an optimistic way of looking at a challenging task ahead. But we wouldn't be doing this season, this team, and this training camp a service if we didn't at least put on the table the way that the Giants can shape this season their way, because that is the goal right now. That is the hope springing eternal of a nothing and nothing team in the NFC East, in a division where, let's be honest, as all the questions roll in, it's great to see all of you guys in the queue. I know you're all jacked up for week one. I am too. Can't wait to take the train down to that New Carrollton, Maryland stop, get in, get a nice dinner, and get rested for that big game on Sunday. You know, everything has its time. The end of the summer, you enjoy those last few days, but once the calendar and the air turns to fall and football, you know, everybody's glad that it's here. But so glad to have you guys here, and so glad to be talking about what looks to be an NFC East that is, dare I say, vulnerable in some ways, more vulnerable than people wouldn't have expected even a couple weeks ago, let alone a couple months ago. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles still stand as a team that will be difficult to contend with, namely because of how strong they are on their fronts and on the interior of both of their fronts, offensive line, defensive line, what they bring with Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, just too many weapons to deal with there. And then obviously the playmaking of that defense with Zach Bond, Quinyon Mitchell, you know, and Jalen Carter, of course, the spearhead of it all up front, led by Vic Fangio, the coordinator. But in Dallas with a first-year head coach, in Washington with a team that, listen, they're on prime time, it feels like every other week. They've got a Sunday night game, 2 Monday night games, 2 Thursday night games. They have a game in Spain. They have a Saturday night game in December. This is a Washington team that's peppered all over prime time this season because of who their quarterback is, who they are, and what it looks like they might be able to accomplish if they continue to ascend. And guess where they're playing in week one? They're playing in the 1:00 Eastern slot. Yes, they received Fox's lead broadcast team of Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady, but Washington's nearly a full touchdown favorite over the Giants in this game. Imagine that the NFL finding a way to keep one of its biggest stars, one of its most attractive new young players and talents at the most important position of the sport. Imagine having that player buried in the week one time slot with tons of games going on. That's what's happened here to the Commanders. You know why? It's because they're playing the Giants and they're not predicted to really be a close game. And that's what the NFL schedule makers decided when they put this schedule out in the spring. That is what the message is sent here to New York. That is what the Giants locker room, Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, and their team, that's what they should be looking at. This was shown to them as a game that is featuring one of the best young talents in the sport, and yet it's at 1. It's not the Thursday night game of opening weekend. It's not Friday night. It's not Sunday night. It's not Monday night. It's Sunday at 1. It's not even in the 4:25 window of Sunday when some of these standalone games get a nice late third and fourth quarter to themselves on the back end of the national scene there. The Washington Commanders are the only team of the final 8 in last year's playoffs to not be playing in one of those premier time slots in week one. It's because the Giants aren't receiving any respect, and that is what the Giants should be thinking about as they go into this game. And welcome, everybody, to Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard here on Labor Day, Monday, September 1st. Can't believe I'm saying September 1st, but it's here. We're thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to be sponsored by MyBookie, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Also by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink and Sal Loretta for Men. Now, I want to remind you that if you go to MyBookie, you're going to be there all season long tailing Pat's picks. That is me picking against the spread. I pick against the spread every game, every week, all season. But we will also dish out our Pat's picks every week. That's typically 3 games, sometimes 4. That's our best bets. That's our 3 we want you to bet. And if you bet Pat's picks all season, if you bet every game with me all season last year, you made money. You beat the books. So we're going to do that again this year with MyBookie. Of course, a great place to also bet things like WWE, UFC, terrific casino there on mybookie.ag. But if you go there, if you want to follow me and make money this season on football, please log in with the code Leonard. That's my last name, Leonard. You will get a 50% deposit match and also plenty of access to games like the partner picks, daily bet boosts, and the money bag, things that just aren't available on all these other sports books, but will be coming straight to you and help you win big at MyBookie. So go to MyBookie, use the code Leonard to win today, and look on all my social media feeds for my latest picks. We'll be doing season picks, and we'll be delivering our Pats picks this week on, I would think that would drop on Thursday, early Thursday, prior to that Eagles-Cowboys opener. So look for our Pats picks today and all throughout this week on social media. My handle everywhere is PL on NFL. If you're on Twitter or X, it's P Leonard NYDN. Also, thrilled to have to Boom Chaga on the queue as well. Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, as you all know, is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. See it right here over my shoulder. You take one of these packets, open it up, pour the Boom Chaga into your coffee, tea, or water, stir and drink. It's tasteless, gives you a nice little kick, also has a ton of health benefits. Boom Chaga also now has the cold teas available out for purchase in stores all over. They have cold teas like the Sweet Dreams, the Rise and Shine, the Midday Boost. If you use my code Talkin Ball 25 on boomchaga.com, that's where you will start feeling the difference. And, of course, Sal Loretta for Men in Midland Park, New Jersey. Luxury menswear and tailoring. Go in there, tell them that Pat sent you. They keep me looking fresh for all my arrivals at these Giants and NFL games and even at the Super Bowl and on Super Bowl Media Row. Go check out my arrival video pregame on YouTube Shorts, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll have that live and kicking on Sunday from the Commander Stadium. And, of course, last but not least, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, brought to you by Jared, owned and operated by this man, Jared, a diehard Giants fan, originally from Houston, and he brings some serious big Texas barbecue flavor right to your tailgate or your home gate, whether you're in the backyard, whether you're in the lot at the stadium. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices is going to make all of your food taste better. Could be flat top burgers, cheesy nachos, smoked wings, brisket. Brisket's my favorite, but whatever you're going for, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices is going to help you do it right. So I'm throwing it right now on the chat. As you can see, support our sponsors with these discount codes. You had Leonard at MyBookie, Talkin Ball 25 at Boom Chaga, and then at Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, it's just Talkin Ball. HooksRub.com. At HooksRub is the handle wherever you are on social media. Go to HooksRub.com. Use that handle, Talkin Ball, that code, Talkin Ball. That'll get you a 15% discount, as well as that's not just a discount on whether it's smoke and sweetness or one or the other award-winning flavors. That would also be on some of the awesome swag that Jared has going on at hooksrub.com. All right, you guys have waited long enough. Thank you so much for joining in. Thanks for being in the queue. Thanks for being here on Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard. As Patrick Evans says, hit that sub and that like button. So please subscribe to the channel. These chats, we limit the questions to subscribers only. It's easy. All you got to do is subscribe, and it should, in about 5 minutes, it should make you eligible to add your name to the comment section and to jump in. So please subscribe today. Also, the like button while we are live. If you like what we are doing, please hit that like button And that just tells all those Giants and NFL fans out there who aren't aware of what we're doing at Talkin Ball to come join us, to come jump in, to show them what we have going on here. On YouTube here, the channel is PL on NFL. I am the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. Also host Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, a podcast. We have special guests on every week. Also plenty of content. We have the merch store, the Talkin Ball merch store that is now live. You can go purchase that on the Shopify link in the chat at the top, as you see right below Patrick's comment. So please go get that. And then last but not least, if you purchase a super chat or a super sticker, that will elevate your comment or question to the top of the queue. So that means if you purchase a super chat or super sticker, I will address your comment or question first or right after I'm done the previous point. All right. Without further ado, let's go. Ken in Wisconsin says, hey, Pat, only 5.5 days to go now. That's an interesting number because that is also the Vegas over-under win total for the Giants. 5.5 days. Here we go. Jose says, sweet, I'm going to get me some swag. Love it. Yes, that Talkin Ball merch store up and running. I believe right now we have a pint glass, a T-shirt. You can get the T-shirt and all the gear in like a lot of different colors, but there's a pint glass, a T-shirt, I think a winter hat, a baseball cap, and we'll have a hoodie coming soon. The hoodie is actually my favorite. That'll be on maybe in a couple days. I also love the pint glass. Have a bunch of stuff coming to me. Just buying it myself to have it on hand because I love it. Gotta sport the Talkin Ball, And trust me, we will in the coming weeks, coming days. Like today, we will have a Hooks, Rubs, and Spices giveaway with our Giants trivia question. But in coming chats, we will have merchandise giveaways at times. So make sure you're in the chat. Make sure you're participating. Make sure you have your notifications on. If your notifications are on, it'll always tell you on the YouTube channel when we are going live, when we have launched a new live, and when it's going to start, what other content we have coming on YouTube Shorts. So please put your notifications on. That's the best way to know, and we'll keep you updated on when we're doing these merch giveaways and everything else because we want to give you the best experience possible as viewers. Peterstown says, hey, Pat, why is Brian Daboll being so secretive on the CB2 starter? Cordell Flott clearly beat out Deonte Banks this summer. So Peterstown is referring to Brian Daboll being unhelpful at his press conference today, Monday, Labor Day, not answering even simple questions about the winner of this the CB2 job, the right guard job, and different things about the depth chart. This is the bottom line. These two games, this first stretch of this season, but these two games specifically, Washington and Dallas, are at this point the most important games that Brian Daboll will have ever coached for his own career's sake. He's coached in bigger games, in playoff games deep with the Buffalo Bills as a coordinator. He made the playoffs and won a playoff game in 2022 with the Giants against the Vikings in Minnesota. So he's coached in games with higher stakes technically in the NFL season. But for Brian Daboll's career as the Giants head coach, he needs to get results in these early games. That means the offense scoring points, and it means wins in the standings in the NFC East. It means the Giants coming out of facing the Commanders and the Cowboys with the arrow pointing up on the program. The optimism and the promise and the excitement of the preseason is here. It's hopefully, the Giants believe, dragging into some good feeling and energy and results when it comes to the week 1 test at Washington, rolling into Arlington, Texas against Dallas in week 2. But I bring this up because Daboll doesn't want to give an inch. At this point, he's treating every single thing like a potential competitive advantage or disadvantage when it comes to these games. So he's locked the safe. He's thrown away the key. He's not delivering any information, comments, or analysis on his depth chart until Sunday. And funny enough, it's appropriate that Brian Daboll is taking this stance, given that he got his start in coaching in the NFL with the New England Patriots. And what did we see tonight as Bill Belichick coached his first game in college for North Carolina? It's facing TCU, as Pete Thamel first reported on ESPN. The depth chart that scouts and NFL scouts all found and media all found in the press box at UNC Stadium for the Tar Heels' first game of the year was empty. No names on the depth chart. There was no way to just look at a sheet of paper in the media room. If you were an NFL scout coming in from outside of town, if you were sitting there before the game trying to prepare of who to watch and who was going to be first string and second string, Bill Belichick didn't give it to him. They didn't give any of that information out. And Thamel said that Belichick had been very difficult with NFL scouts throughout the offseason and throughout the summer. And so there's a heavy NFL presence at this game to scout his team and scout his players. And yet here they arrive at that type of stonewalling from the UNC coach, the longtime Patriots head coach, the 6-time Super Bowl winner as a head coach in New England. So that's where Brian Daboll gets this stuff. You know, he gets this stuff from thinking that that's the way things should be done. And he's resorting and reverting to what he originally learned and to what he knows as he faces the highest pressure situation career-wise to date that he's ever been in. And so that, Peterstown, is why, even though what you just said is true, it became very clear down the stretch of the preseason and the summer that even though Flott had missed a lot of time with injury, that Banks was still not in strong favor with the organization, and that they were excited when Flott got healthy and ready to reinsert him immediately. And, you know, playing Deonte Banks as long as they did in that first preseason game when Flott was out, that sent a message right there. I think it's very clear that Flott is going to be starting there. And Flott had some good tackling at points in the preseason when he was on the field in some of these late preseason games. So that was encouraging. But we'll talk more about the cornerback position when we talk about the depth chart. But that's the answer, Peterstown, is that Daboll is facing a ton of pressure and he's treating everything like a potential competitive advantage, whether that's right or not. Barb says, don't see Andrew Thomas starting. Hope he makes it back week 2 or 3 at the latest. Unfortunately, Barb, I agree. I have no new information off of what we know from late last week with him speaking in the locker room and uncertainty continuing to linger. But I've been telling you guys that based on what I was originally told, and then based on what I was encountering thereafter, what I was seeing on the field, and what my eyes were telling me versus what my ears were telling me, it became very clear to me that seemed unlikely that he would be in the lineup. We got the super chats rolling in here. Patrick Evans and Biondo Roofing. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to get to you guys immediately right after I wrap up this point on Andrew Thomas. Thank you so much for your support. I genuinely, really, really do appreciate it. But Barb, back to Andrew Thomas quickly. I think that my takeaway here is that I think Andrew Thomas has taken this rehab and this process into his own hands. And so certainly the Giants staff is intimately involved. Training staff, strength staff. And you have doctors, Giants doctors, those he's gotten second opinions from, etc. There's a huge team, Andrew Thomas's team around him. But, in seasons past, at times past, like the Giants have, they rushed him back once and he ended up re-injuring a hamstring and it cost him a lot of time. His surgery that he had early in his career on his ankle did not adequately take care of everything wrong with that ankle. Then he had a second surgery that cleaned it up. So he's had instances in his career, whether it was dealing with the training staff, a doctor, the team, whatever it is, where just the management of his injuries has not gone well. Like, you're going to get hurt as a big guy, and it's a frustrating if a big player, especially this important to your team, gets hurt fairly frequently. But you want to be smart about how you manage it so that ultimately these things don't happen again. And that is why I think this is, Barb, as much Thomas's caution about trying to be smart about, listen, when I get hurt, it decimates our team. So if I have to miss the first and second game of the season, or just the first or the first 3, whatever it is, if he has to miss a game or 2 early because he thinks, and they think, the professionals think, that's more likely to keep him on the field for the other 16 or 15 or whatever it is games, then if that works out and that's the priority, then ultimately, then that's what they're going to do. It obviously is a drastically different timeline than what they set out at the beginning. And there were, if not a setback, then they clearly backed off of the original time frame to give him more time, to give his foot more time with that Liz Frank. So whether you don't want to call it a setback or not, this is a delay. It's hopefully not a delay that cripples the Giants offense and team with James Hudson in there at left tackle. But I agree with you, Barb, as we sit here and now, how can you expect Andrew Thomas to play in this game? Very difficult to expect that. Patrick says, hey, Pat, I remember saying to you a month ago, get that old-fashioned sip ready after every Giants win. They're going 2-0. Patrick showing a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for the Giants. This is what I'm saying, Patrick, is that doesn't the Parsons trade just make you, if you were a Giants player, if you're a Giants fan, doesn't it just make a glisten re-enter your eye for a second and you say to yourself, wait a minute, if they can just get one and go to Dallas with the lack of mojo and really just a player you no longer have to game plan for in Micah Parsons who can wreck games, what a relief that is in division. What an opportunity that creates. Patrick, thanks for the support. Biondo Contracting, licensed New Jersey roofing company, checks in with a big 50 spot. Biondo, I remember, and please correct me if I'm not saying the name properly. I'm pronouncing it Biondo. I don't think it's Biondo, but I could be wrong. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But it looks like Biondo Contracting checks in with a 50 spot. Huge support. Thank you so much. Absolutely blown away. Says, appreciate your dedication to providing your time, or appreciate you dedicating and providing your time to all of us diehard Giants fans. You're the best. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Guys, go check out Biondo. I can't thank you guys enough for your support. Try to support you as well. And let's see, back into the queue. I know I dedicate my time to you guys because I know how much you care about this team. And, I want to be able to serve all NFL fans too. So if the Giants are somehow, maybe you're, first of all, you would think most of our audience is in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. We have an audience all over the world, all over the country, whether it's Giants fans who have moved elsewhere, moved to California, moved down to Florida, moved down to the Carolinas, whatever it is, people all across the Midwest, internationals. There are so many people who can't get enough information about their team and about this league. So if you have a question about any other team, about any other Giants opponent, about anything else going on in the league, you can bring that here too. But we definitely aim to serve, first and foremost, Giants fans, New York fans. As somebody who's in the Giants locker room every day, I have a unique connection to that team, as well as going into my 10th season covering the league, an extensive network of sources throughout the NFL. So there are a lot of people creating great content out there, and, more power to all of them to continue growing and succeeding. But we do believe here at Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard that we bring a unique amount of insight, information, and institutional knowledge to these conversations. So thank you so much for recognizing the time and what we're putting into this. And it's not possible without you guys. So thank you so much. All right. Intel says top 10 defense. That would be good to see. I do look at the Giants' decisions with the depth chart when they whittled down to 53 men. By the way, if you're keeping track, 48 out of 53 here that I got correct. So I whiffed on some, but got a majority down. Sorry, had written down my wins and my losses there. And so just to recap, looks like the guys that I didn't have on the team who made it were Gunnar Olszewski, DJ Davidson, Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, Nick Jones, and Corey Black. And then I had picked Turbo Miller, Little Jordan Humphrey, Amir Smith-Marset, Elijah Chapman, and Raheem Lane to make it. So those were the 5 that I was wrong about. Obviously, Corey Black ended up getting cut, and they were going to sign him back to the practice squad, and then he chose to sign with the Jets instead, the Giants draft pick leaving and signing with the Jets. So that ultimately did not work out there, and he will never have played for the team that selected him. But I bring this up because you mentioned top 10 defense intel, and I think one thing that stood out to me from the early 53 man, you look at the Giants claiming Rico Payton off of waivers from the Saints, and Bo Braid too, they claimed off of waivers from Baltimore safety, but claiming Rico Payton off waivers. They were not thrilled about losing Corey Black. They keep Nick Jones. That was a player I did not really have on my radar at all as somebody who was going to be retained and stick on this team. Not that he doesn't deserve it, just that, nothing jumped out to me there much at all. But I think that the Giants' activity on their 53 man there and keeping those two extra guys initially and then adding Rico, I believe is motivated by a couple of things. First of all, special teams is a motivating factor. You heard Joe Shane say that, but I think this cornerback depth is an issue and a concern. Now, listen, most NFL teams, if one of their top three corners gets hurt, the guy who comes in to replace them, he's a backup for a reason. He's probably going to be somebody that teams can take advantage of in the passing game at times. That happens. But I do think that given that the Giants don't seem to have a lot of confidence in Banks, and that it's Flott, Paulson Adebo, Drew Phillips, but their activity at the corner spot, to me, they seem like a team that's really searching for, another contributor, another body to chip in there if things get rough, if injuries start to mount. A team that is, wary of its back end, and having the appropriate resources there to address it. But Intel, for sure, if they can stop the run, the pass rush is something that could potentially wreck games. You have to hope that in this first game that Dexter Lawrence is going to be full go and that his slow, steady rehabilitation and ramp up back to playing shape is going to take hold and that he's going to be able to thrive in this first game. I have doubts about whether he's going to be able to have his wind in the fourth quarter, given how little amounts of football that we've seen him play and that we know that he has not played based on all the practices that we've seen. So I'm interested to see. I think they're really going to need, I think an underrated part of this game is that they're going to need that defensive line rotation, maybe to chip in a little bit more often than you need to for a guy like Dexter Lawrence, guys like Rory Robertson-Harris, Chauncey Golston, even maybe the rookie Darius Alexander, although that'll be a big spot to thrust him right into. But I think that the Giants defense has a potential to be that top 10 that you're talking about, Intel, if they can stop the run, if they can be strong up front, force teams into third and longs, and ultimately, of course, it'll help them if the offense scores enough so that they have a lead and teams have to throw on them as well. Dan says, hey, Pat, it's your time to shine. That's right. Week 1 NFL season. Let's ride, Dan. Appreciate you. Tony says, I believe the Giants will win the season opener 24-20. There it is. Tony calling it. Intel thinks Daniels will have a bad game. Antonio checking in. What's up, Antonio? Great to see you. Manzo says, hey, Pat, why was Bo Collins put on the 53-man roster over little Jordan Humphrey? So, yeah, I had them both making the team, Manzo. I talked to Mike Groh, the receivers coach, about Bo Collins the other day. And Mike Groh essentially said that Bo Collins did an excellent job of not only studying the playbook, mastering the playbook, and having a deep understanding of it despite its complexities. So, first of all, he's saying he's intelligent, he's a hard worker, and he got those plays down. But that he also did it to a level that demonstrated to all the quarterbacks and the coaches and everyone that he could be trusted. Despite being a rookie, despite being undrafted, he was a guy that earned the trust of the quarterbacks, whether it was Russell Wilson in the first team, Jackson Dart in the second team, Jameis Winston, whoever. He earned that trust by studying and then by applying whatever he had to, whether it was audibles, whether it was how he broke off a route, depending on the coverages, that his translating his work ethic and then translating the offense to the field and applying it early, even back in the spring, is something that has really jumped out. And that's Groh, a guy who's coached in the NFL for years, who's coached, whose father, of course, was a longtime coach. And this is a guy who's forgotten more football than most of us know. And this is him raving about, as much as Mike Groh can rave about somebody, because he's very even and not prone to hyperbole at all. And, this wasn't hyperbole either. He was just delivering the reality that this is what the kid has done well, or the young man has done well, I should say. And so, not that little Jordan Humphrey didn't know any of those things or do those things, but the Giants are definitely a team that's trying to, unlock a young foundation and create one. Obviously, it's taken them a while to create one in certain spots, especially. And so the youth of Collins, his ability to get downfield, his athleticism, his intelligence, they love his character, high character guy, great makeup. So there's just a lot they like about him. And at an affordable number on an undrafted rookie contract, like all of those variables come into the play. I did think little Jordan Humphrey was going to stick around as like a run blocking wide receiver. So I got that one wrong. Let's see. Intel thinks that Abdul Carter is the key to this game. He certainly could be an X factor. I agree with that. I do think Intel, I know there's excitement about the defense and about the pass rush. I think the key to this game, although obvious, is for their offense to function like you said, hey, top 10 defense. My answer to that is it only matters if they have a top 15 offense. I think that the key to this game is, think about week 2 last year when Daniel Jones and the Giants almost beat them in their building. The reason the Giants had a chance to win that game is because their offense was scoring every time they touched the ball. And that's something that's very rare to say about the Giants offense in recent years. But that was pretty much what was happening there. They were scoring touchdowns every time they got the ball there and when they needed them. And that is what you need to see from Russell Wilson and the Giants offense. Not touchdowns every drive, but a competent enough offense that you're forcing Washington's offense into uncomfortable situations to either play catch up with you or to keep up every time that you answer them. You cannot allow Washington to get into a space where they don't have to throw the ball, where they don't have to drop back a lot, where Jayden Daniels isn't running for his life from Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence and these guys. You need Daniels in obvious 3rd and long, 2nd and long, plays where your pass rush can tee off, places where you can get a little bit creative with those blitz packages where Shane Bowen can dial something up, let's say from Drew Phillips in the slot and drop Abdul Carter or whatever the case may be. You need the offense to get you the points on the board to help force those situations. Antonio says, how do you expect the snap percentages to be with Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and even Chauncey Golston? I think Golston's going to play both inside and out. I think he's going to play both. I think he's going to be in those rotations. I'm curious to see, like I said, I do think Dexter Lawrence, I'm sure he'll play plenty. I don't know if he'll play his typical snap load or if he does, might be a challenging 4th quarter to get through, though we'll see. But I think that the Roy Robertson Harris, Chauncey Golston, those guys, Nacho, obviously, those guys can help on the interior. Darius Alexander is supposed to be a key part of that rotation inside. I'm curious to see how much he plays, though, in this opener. They have high hopes for him. They believe in him, they say. But to be totally honest, not an impressive preseason based, not impressive, I would say, compared to what you expected to see in the way that the organization talks about him. So now that could change. But if he doesn't see a ton of time early on in the first couple of weeks, then Golston, I think, eats up some of those snaps. Carter also eats up some snaps inside. That's a way to keep him on the field, and especially in passing situations. You keep an extra pass rusher up on the line. Burns will play most of the game, but he will come out strategically. I don't think it's going to be a kind of thing where it's like Burns isn't playing this entire drive. I think he's not the type of guy who's just going to sit on the sideline if the defense is being driven on. But I do think, and I know from talking to Charlie Bullen, that Burns and Thibodeau are both going to get a breather here and there that they haven't gotten in recent year. Well, last season specifically, where it felt like, they were never coming off the field and you could see the wear and tear happening with them, mainly because of what Carter can give them going in and out, and then Golston can give them going in and out as well. If you're talking about snap percentages, I guess I would say, I don't know. Let me see what percentage they were playing last year as a basis point, and I'll give you my answer to that. So let's just go, let's go apples to apples, and let's go to a close game. Let's go to Washington's, that when they played Washington in week 2 last year. So when the Giants played Washington in week 2 last year, Burns played 89% of the snaps. Wow. Yeah. I think that's what I expected, but it's still wild. He played 89%. Dexter Lawrence played 82%, and Thibodeau played 78%. And then they had Aziz at 31%. Yeah, interesting. So I would think that Burns, instead of being in that 90 percentile, they're going to want to have him closer to 75%, 80%, probably 80%. 75, 80. Thibodeau, think of him going down to, 65 maybe. And then Carter jumping in and rotating in and out. But like I said, I think Thibodeau and Burns are still going to play a healthy amount, at least early on, because I do think Carter, Golston, they're also going to work inside as well as rotate outside. Joe says, Pat, the Washington radio people said they are worried about their defensive front seven, but the Giants will not beat them. Yes, Tom Brady and the number 1 game for Fox at 1 p.m. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the simple nature of how these games sometimes go too, right? Like you look at my Notre Dame Fighting Irish last night, unfortunately falling to the Miami Hurricanes on the road, and Notre Dame, for whatever reason, coming out and not going to what their personnel dictates and what their, style normally dictates they do best. And that is to run the ball, hit teams in the mouth, direct, and out physical their opponent. And when you run the ball well, now obviously if you have a high flying passing attack, you're scoring touchdowns, you're not kicking field goals, teams can't keep up. That's ideal, right? But in the modern NFL, as the Philadelphia Eagles reminded us last year, if you can run the ball and dominate the line of scrimmage, it can help you control games. It can help you dictate terms. It can help you define defensive looks and limit what the defense can throw at you. There's a lot of things that it helps you to do to manage, control, and win games. And again, like I talked about earlier, can the Giants have a top 10 defense? Sure, as long as they stop the run. Can the Giants take advantage of a vulnerable Washington front seven? Possibly. Maybe. But what 2 things need to happen? The offensive line needs to be better than it's been. And they actually, they did run the ball well against Washington last year in week 2 down in Washington. So this group has done that before. Now, again, if they were without Andrew Thomas, that could be a blow. But they have to take advantage of that, both with the O-line and also the backs that they have behind them. That's Tyrone Tracy. That's Devin Singletary. That's Cam Scatterbo. How ready will Scatterbo be? How healthy will Cam Scatterbo be? How able will they be to capitalize on that and control not only the line of scrimmage, but with Russell Wilson as the quarterback, running the ball well and gaining first downs on the ground, that's not just important for dictating terms of the game. It's also, they have a quarterback that needs more protection than Daniel Jones needed. Now, Daniel Jones needed protection too, but Russell Wilson is not going to win games with his legs. He's not going to dazzle. This is not Lamar Jackson. This is not Russell Wilson of old. This is Russell Wilson, veteran quarterback on his fourth team in 5 years, who can still throw a nice deep ball from the pocket and call a game, manage an offense, right? That is the quarterback that they have back there. And so running the ball is not just important for him, it's imperative for Russell Wilson and the Giants in order to execute. So, Joe, to be honest, that's a good thing to hear. That's encouraging to hear that Washington's media down there thinks that Washington's defensive front is vulnerable. Now, again, here's where we flip the game plan too. I just said the Giants offense needs to score so that the defense can get Jayden Daniels into obvious passing situations and the pass rush can tee off, right? On the flip side, if you get a lead, you need the defense to be able to hold that lead and get the ball back to your offense so that you can do what? You can control the pace. You can bleed the clock. You can keep possession. You can keep Jayden Daniels off the field. If there's anything any of us can agree on, it's that the best way to beat a team is to keep its best player from either getting the ball or going on the field at all. And so the more time on, possession means a lot in most NFL games anyway. But the bottom line is the more time that Jayden Daniels spends on the sideline in this game, the better. And if running the ball is the most likely way to accomplish that, then that's what the Giants need to hone in on come Sunday. Michael, what's going on? Good to see you. GCN says Pat Dable said he was happy they drafted Dart, and he is our guy. Oh, yeah. Tons of excitement about Jackson in the building. No doubt about it. Leading with Dables. Barb feels they're going to beat Washington. Joe says the Dallas game is a must-win for the Giants. Dallas radio people said the run defense is worse than last year. They also cut signed two D-backs who were never with the team. Still talent on that team, but no doubt Dallas looks vulnerable to anyone right now. Like you know what it is? Their PR right now is so bad from what the mess that they've created and how they've handled the offseason. Is their team going to be as bad as their PR has been? I mean, probably not. So they're probably going to be a little bit better of a product than what everybody thinks they're going to be, especially with Dak throwing to CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. But absolutely, the run defense for them remains a concern, and the roster has taken some hits with players either traded or leaving or injured. So they're 100% vulnerable. GCN says the first half of the game against Washington will show what the offense will be about this year. If it's slow and field goals filled, Wilson will not last past game 4, and maybe not even that long. Giants need to announce injuries on Wednesday. So basically, you saw the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, they open on Thursday night. So here on Monday, their first injury report came out. So the Giants and the Commanders and all the teams playing on Sunday, their first injury report will come out on Wednesday. So Tuesday is an off day. Wednesday, we will be back in the building. I will be back in the Giants facility, reporting from the locker room, from practice, from interviews on the latest that comes out of that initial injury report for the Giants and for the Commanders and what it means for their matchup coming up on Sunday. Let's see. Jared says you can feel the urgency from this front office this year. Something feels different. Yeah, it's a combination of pressure, excitement. They need to win. So yeah, they absolutely need to win. This is not just an urgency to be better. It's a need to be better. There's definitely a different feel around the team. I think it's especially due to, now listen, when you lose a lot of games as an organization, you're going to have high draft picks year in and year out. And the Giants have slowly, steadily started to accumulate high draft picks in various rounds. Now, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Deonte Banks, John Michael Schmitz, Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, a lot of these picks are either still question marks or misses or guys who have shown some but need to show more. But this year, with their number 3 overall pick, they got a guy a lot of people thought was the best player in the draft and certainly was viewed as the best non-quarterback in the draft by most teams. And they also traded up to get the quarterback that they ultimately decided in the end that they preferred, despite, of course, having eyes for Shedeur Sanders all offseason as well. But so the excitement comes from the front office and the head coach and the staff and their ability to land 2 players like that they have a strong affinity for. And that players who have positively impacted the team on the field and off the field throughout their offseason and their preseason and the summer. And so, there's reason to be excited about those players and about that situation whenever that happens for a franchise. But that's why it's so critical to get a result here and a result early, because they just need a little bit of validation that what they're doing is going to work and translate. And if it does, if they get that validation, then who knows? Joe says, Pat, what if Green Bay bought damaged goods? Micah Parsons is managing a facet joint sprain in his back and may receive an epidural injection to play in the upcoming game. Yeah, doesn't sound like that's a smart thing to do. Maybe like let it go. Normally, though, when guys take epidurals like that and play through something like that in a week 1 game like this, that would mean that he's being advised that whatever injury he has is something that he's not likely to aggravate and that it's just a pain thing. So in which case that would account for him considering that injection, that shot. So it's not as reckless as it might sound, but if I'm the Packers, man, I'd kind of love if he just got healthy, if that's what he needs, a few weeks. But no, I mean, I think that's a player who can change your team. And Green Bay is quietly a regime that has some pressure on it. John Middlecoff, who does a great podcast for the Volume Sports, has talked about that recently, about with Green Bay having some new management in there, that it's just a different look and there's some different personalities running the show and some different voices in the room, and that Gutekunst and LaFleur, this is a season where with Love now kind of on a trajectory where it's time to show results. It's time to not only continue to blossom, but flourish and finish and get into the playoffs and make noise. And they've won a ton of games in Green Bay, but they have nothing to show for it. And so I do think that was motivated by urgency for this particular regime as well, giving up those pieces. But certainly got players like this just don't come open very often. And remember, Joe, that Dallas Cowboys didn't trade him with any knowledge of like a debilitating injury that someone was buying damaged goods when they got them from him. The fact is, in a trade like this, he still has to pass a physical. So if it was that bad, then the physical wouldn't have passed and they wouldn't have put the trade through. But all that said, obviously a sprain in your back is not nothing and is something to look out for, as you point out. GCN says, are they taking bets on when Dable throws his headset and yells at Wilson? Right, or turns and yells at at an assistant coach. Listen, he's intense. And that's part of who he is naturally. I think he's trying to, with John Mara kind of saying like, enough is enough. We need to change this up we need to shape up as we're running this operation. He wanted to see, play calling go to the offensive coordinator, and certainly that behavior on the sideline, the behavior with the staff, that has ostracized and alienated plenty of staff members over the years and led to coaches leaving. That is behavior that needs to be limited. So they need to get results, and they need the head coach to act like one on the sidelines too for the health of the entire operation. And don't forget, in the context of that too, the GM and coach, they were basically functioning as separate entities, coming out of last season, in a bulk part of this early offseason. And certainly they talked a lot coming into training camp about, oh, we've had bumps in the road, but everybody loves each other. Kumbaya, right? And so now that storyline, that fact, that reality of how difficult the offseason was for them, coming out of those meetings with Mara and ownership and being held to task, and where were fingers being pointed and who was taking accountability and who wasn't, that's the slippery slope that this is on right now. And so remember that if things get tough. Yeah, Joe says Lisfranc injury can take up to 12 months to a full year. So Thomas is will be about at that in October. GCN says, did Evan Neal make the team? And is he the starting guard? So yes, Evan Neal made the team. He is on the Giants roster. Is he the starting guard? In my belief, no, he is not. In my belief, he is a backup. I don't think it's a difficult decision. I don't view it as much of a question at all. I believe that Evan Neal was given an opportunity in the offseason, and there were times where he showed some encouraging things. I would say more encouraging play than some of what we saw at tackle. But in the end, he spent too much time on the ground, and his misses are just too bad. Like when he misses, he whiffs and it kills a play. Or he ends up on the ground and it kills a play, leads to a loss, can lead to an early hit, which leads to a fumble, whatever it is. I just don't think you can trust him in that spot. In week one, I believe it's going to be Greg Van Roten. I am interested mentioning the 53 man. And by the way, again, as you guys know, we're brought to you by MyBookie, hooks, rubs, and spices, Boom Chaga mushroom super drink, and Estate 98 coffee. Of course, will be back in the flow soon. And then we also have Salaretta for Men in Midland Park, New Jersey. All of our sponsors, grateful to them. You can see the codes scrolling on the bottom. Please please support all of our sponsors. MyBookie.ag. The code is Leonard. Get a 50% match. Boomchaga.com. The code is Talkin Ball 25. And Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. The code is just Talkin Ball for all their swag and their great product. But you asked about the roster there. The 53 man. I did have some other notes I wanted to deliver on the 53 man roster. One of them was that I found it interesting that Amir Smith-Marset didn't make the 53. Now, of course, he is on the practice squad, so he's still in the building, and he hasn't gone anywhere. But I would also say this: he did not have a good training camp. So Gunnar Olszewski came back and had a strong camp, and really you were only keeping one or the other. So Olszewski gets the nod, and Smith-Marset gets bumped down to the practice squad. I just found it interesting because, last year, Smith-Marset and what he was able to do on the field as a returner was honestly one of the few bright spots of the entire season. It was almost like they'd found the guy, on a roster full of like swings and misses. So that was interesting. Like I said, didn't have a strong camp, but I did think that what he did last year when the lights came on mattered, at least to me. But he's still in the building, so he's not gone. DJ Davidson over Elijah Chapman. Now listen, I don't, choosing one over the other. Either way, I don't think either player is a huge difference maker. I don't entirely follow the DJ Davidson affinity internally. I think he's a big enough body where they understand that run stopping is something they desperately need to get better at as a defensive line and as a team. And so Chapman, although he has a great motor and again is still in the practice squad, Chapman's undersized. Davidson gives you a bigger body, somebody who you hope can plug the middle on certain short yardage situations and give you some good ball. But I've just seen too many times where he gets put on skates by strong interior linemen, and it opens up huge gaps and holes in a lackluster run defense. So I guess you had to keep one. They decide it's Davidson, but I don't think that solves anything. Ultimately, what we did learn is whether it's Chapman playing fullback, whether it was seeing Juice Wells line up at safety in a warm-up in the final preseason game, Smith Marset, they used him as a quarterback at one point on an option play, and now he's done that in practice for them too. But I think a lot of people's perception was like, oh, look at this guy's doing so much for the team. He's so versatile. They can't cut him. But actually what we see, even going to, now Deonte Banks made the team, but you even go back to like how long they played him in that first preseason game. It's almost like giving these guys those extra opportunities is like, hey, let's just see if something else pops somewhere else and, exhaust all options with this player and their evaluation and what we think they might be able to do before we cut them, because they're not getting it done in their purely primary role. So I think what we learned is when guys start getting all of those wacky, multiple, versatile looks, it doesn't necessarily with this regime mean, hey, we're looking to use you in a lot of different ways. It might also mean, hey, show us you have enough value elsewhere to keep you, because right now it's not sufficient just at this one spot. Now, again, like I said, Chapman's still in the building. He could still end up getting elevated and playing fullback for them as well. Yes, Belichick and UNC losing at half. Kevin says, any thoughts on a reunion with Jabril Peppers? Jabril is the kind of guy I would love to have on my team any day of the week, twice on Sunday. He's got a great competitive streak to him. I mean, he is just no nonsense, full tilt, all systems go. I think this is probably the wrong team for him, the same way that the Patriots was the wrong team for him. Coaches with young rosters trying to build something and trying to get strong personalities that maybe might challenge them out, or whether it's regimes or coaches trying to get personalities that challenge them out so that they can run their program, and that the young players aren't listening to something different from a veteran who either thinks he knows better or isn't afraid to say so. And so, I'm not sure this is a Jabril team when it comes to his fit in what they've built and in the locker room that they have. I think he's too real and too strong of a personality to, like, he would call things out as he saw them and challenge people. And I'm not exactly sure that's the environment that they're the type of guy they're looking for in their environment. Tuto checks in with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Tuto. What's up? Tuto says, salutes and respect to Pat and all diehard Giants fans across the pond. Greetings from our entire rugby club in Italy. We had our second W of the season opener against top-ranked clubs and shocked the world. Come back from behind for the W. Let's go, Tuto. Respect to you, Tuto. Well done. Tell the boys, keep on getting them. Keep getting them done. Keep getting those dubs. Thank you so much for the support, too. Always appreciate you. What a diehard. GCN says, Pat, the NFL signed an AI contract with Microsoft. Do any of the players or writers use the Microsoft Surface tablet? I don't know anyone who bought them. Do the players use iPads at home? I believe they end up using whatever contracted. So honestly, what happens in a lot of these situations is they just use whatever is provided to the club. So if they have a Microsoft Surface deal with the NFL, they have Surfaces, but they call them iPads. Wasn't that something that happened on one of those broadcasts like 3 or 4 years ago. Collinsworth or somebody accidentally called it an iPad, and the guy was standing there holding the Microsoft tablet. And that's a big deal. Joe says, Pat, Eagles were 29th in passing and number 1 in the running game. Mark Schlereth always says you have to punch the other team in the mouth, no doubt. Jared says, my fear is that the same thing is going to happen to Jackson Dart if they let Brian Daboll go at the end of the year. Yeah, well, I think the ideal situation is for the Giants to show enough promise this year that then they can get Jackson in the games. And even if the final record doesn't look the way the Giants want it to, an improvement in the team plus promise with Jackson and consistency with that development and that system can translate into, hey, one more year of this, stay consistent, all of that. That's certainly possible. They need to get to that point. Let's see. Socrates says the sprain is from carrying all that money around that he just got from Green Bay. He's talking about Parsons. It's a miracle he's cured. That's right. Luann, what's going on? Luann says, hey, Pat, Giants will win the division. Truly believe that. Wow. Listen to Luann. She says, I love Gunner. He reminds me of Wes Welker. Do you see the Giants beating Washington? We had them beat twice last season. We didn't have a kicker, but this year I feel the Giants will start 3-0. All right, Luann. Luann is always the optimist. And Luann, definitely think that the Giants have the opportunity. We talked a lot at the beginning about how this is a challenge, but also an opportunity. If you can knock off Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders here in week 1, imagine what you're announcing in a division where Micah Parsons is no longer playing. He's a Green Bay Packer. He's not a Dallas Cowboy. You beat Washington. You beat Jayden Daniels in week 1. Then you go to Dallas, who have a rookie head coach playing his first home game ever as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. I mean, you could have Dallas on the verge of disaster and the Giants 1-0 going in there. So definitely not out of the question. 3-0 is interesting. You have them beating the Chiefs. That's tough to go that far. Joe says, Pat, did you know Shane's son is quarterback for Don Bosco? He came in and won the game over a team in Texas. Yes, I did know that. 17 says, Pat, how are we going to stop Daniels? Quick release. They still have good wide receivers, and our corner room isn't amazing. I get our pass rush should be great on paper, but do you think Daniels can still exploit that? Yes, I mean, Drew Phillips was strong in coverage this year. Paulson Adebo will be interesting to watch. He's a key player to watch in this game as well, related to what you're talking about. 17 with, can he prevent quick separation from Washington's receivers? And also on the back end, the tackling when Deebo Samuel gets the ball, whether it's in the backfield going through your D line or whether he's catching a bubble screen, nobody likes tackling Deebo Samuel. I promise you that. And so that could be an issue if they can't get their hands coverage wise on those plays and the ball's coming out quickly to neutralize the pass rush. Then you're facing those tackling challenges on the outside. I think Adebo is the linchpin to that. If Adebo can lock up, whether it's McLaurin or if he's holding down a side of the field, then you have Drew Phillips has been pretty good in the slot so far. And then Paulson Adebo, if he can give you a true number one, yes, you're still going to give up plays. And, Flott / Banks is going to have ups and downs. But that, to me, would be the key between shutting that down or not. Also, I think Ertz and the tight ends are always a challenge against the Giants, whether it's linebacker, safeties. Javon Hollins, a guy who is going to jump routes and try to neutralize that part of the game plan. I can promise you that. I like Hollins' attitude as a ball hawk, like literally how he physically plays, pass plays. I do like seeing him drive on the ball. He's aggressive about it. He doesn't hesitate when he thinks he sees the way the play's developing. So, that's what you hope for there, is that guys like that are stepping up to make plays. Pat, we are blessed to have two great coaches who work their hearts and they give everything they've got and pump up the players, do the same to play all in every match. Never bend, shake, or surrender. Unstoppable is our motto. Praise to the club, Tuto. I love it. You get me fired up. It's like I'm in the locker room right now. All right, let's see. Great question there, 17. Michael says, I agree. Jabril needs to go to a team turning the corner towards being a solid playoff, consistent contender. Yep. Let's see. Michael says, Peppers definitely deserves to be a third safety and money backer on any team. Criminally underrated competitor from Jersey, too. Yeah, no doubt. No, I mean, I love talking to him after games. Like, he's so emotionally invested. Michael thinks that Daboll's not going anywhere because of Dart. If they can coach well enough to look like they know how to coach an NFL team this year compared to last year, yeah. Michael says, unless the Giants are horrible, like 2 to 4 wins. Oh, unless they're so bad that they win 2 to 4 games, Brian Daboll will be back, in my opinion, according to Michael. Yeah, no, I think so. You know, I think, listen, Daboll's shortcomings are mostly related to, well, obviously he's an offensive coach whose offense doesn't score. That's a major issue. But the inability to win games and to operate on game days comes down to poor situational football decisions and bad management of staff. And those are things that need to improve. And that shows up in the win-loss column, but is also a week-to-week thing that I've obviously reported extensively on in the Daily News over the last several years with this regime, but is something that you have to keep in mind. Now, that's, to your point and to Michael's point, you have the young quarterback. You have a team that seems like it's believing. You just need a little bit of a taste. You need to wet your beak with some results, and you need the coach to translate all the talk and all the, hey, look how good the preseason has been. You need to turn that into regular season success and back it up. And if they can even back it up a little bit, that's how this program will improve. And that's how, like you said, then it becomes an obvious thing. Oh, yeah, well, then you have the young quarterback. You got to, develop him and push him into, a second year in the same offense. You can't rip that up on him. And that's certainly something that they did too often to Daniel Jones. So that's probably a reaction. I do see another comment here, though. Luann says Daboll needs to be extended. He's a good coach. I'm tired of changing coaches. I don't follow the argument of extending Brian Daboll at all. They went 3-14 last year. I've never even heard of somebody being extended off of a 3-win season, or let's say they start 2-0 this year, 2 wins into a year after a 3-14 season. Like I've never heard of anything like that. But I think with the Giants being a team that is selling off part of their team to new minority ownership at some point, they're a team that is not looking to take on extra salary at the moment if they don't have to, and take on extra, expenditures. And I believe, that's a huge decision, the one you're talking about, Luann. If, let's say, this season goes a little bit better but not great, are you really extending a staff as people are buying on to and buying into this organization? I think for the Giants, if they have a strong season this year, their valuation, arguably in their minds and their negotiations for that minority ownership, their valuation goes up. And then if all arrows are pointing up, here come the extensions, the GM and the coach here to stay, all of those things, and, optimism and all of that, right? And so, that is where that could come into play in that scenario. But I think it's way too early to have the conversation about reinvesting in a staff that has brought the Giants to where they are today. Joe says at most Giants win 5 games if they beat Dallas twice this year. Mike thinks they go 12-5. Wow. Thank you, 17. Yeah, that was a great question from you. Michael says, I agree. We looked like a CFL team last year. It almost looked like they were tanking, but that Colts game kind of threw me for a loop and almost made me more nervous. Well, that was Daboll coaching for his job too, right? Like, Yeah, they definitely didn't mind losing enough games to have a high pick, but that was also at that point, that's the head coach trying not to get fired. That's the people, the rats on the ship, right? Who's pointing fingers, who's accountable, who's not. Let's see. Michael says Dable definitely will use Jackson Dart, and we will see which way the Giants perform by the year's end. I totally agree with you, Michael. Like, there is a scenario where Russell Wilson plays well enough early that they, theoretically don't play the kid. You and I both know when young quarterbacks play well, they end up on the field. There's no reason for them not to. If they're not ready, they're not ready. But if they look like they're ready, they play. If Russell Wilson has the first half with the Giants like he did for the Steelers in the playoffs against the Ravens, Jackson Dart's running out that tunnel in the second half. Like, that to me, that's not out of the question. Let's see. It's good Kafka's going back to play calling. Let Dable be a head coach focused on the morale of the roster. Definitely not extended, but if he wins 6 or 7 games and the way Dart looked, I think he'll be here for Dart. Michael says, I agree. I think 2 wins is fireable. Maybe he had to win to show Mara. Yes, he did. 17 says, your personal belief. Do you think Dart was that good, or was he just cutting up second and third string defenses? I think, no, I think he was good in this sense. So if you remember, midway through camp, I made a comment about him holding the ball pretty long in certain practices for a stretch, and he was. He was. So when, as he started to play in the preseason games and when they started to install some plays for him and make him comfortable with what he was running, I thought his poise was really strong. And his poise in the pocket and his movement in the pocket with still the intention of throwing the ball down the field, that was always something that showed up on his tape at Ole Miss. Smart, not rushed, not frantic foot movement in the pocket to still stay ready to make a throw, right? Not bailing out of plays quickly, keeping his eyes down the field even when he starts to run, keeping his eyes down the field, and looking to throw. Now, there were some coverage busts. There were some, hey, you're facing a second string D-line or a second string defense versus a starting unit. There was some of that. There's absolutely no question. But those traits of keeping your eyes downfield to make a play, turning something into or nothing into something with his legs, the ability to get out and move. Obviously, he learned from that poor decision trying to take on defenders in the open field when he was running. That's a good lesson, because if he tried to do it against them, imagine if he does that in a game that counts, and against a starting unit and guys looking to take your head off, But I think that, no, I think it was more validation that he can play than he was just facing backups. There are plenty of teams whose backup quarterbacks played as much as Jackson Dart, who, rarely found the end zone at all, So deserves credit for it, but definitely does not automatically mean it's going to translate instantly if he goes into a regular season game. I think that what the difference for the regular season is not only facing better players when you're facing starters, it's also those, whether it's concealing coverages, moving guys last second, in coverage, dropping D linemen, dropping one lineman off the line and then blitzing the corner or an off-ball linebacker in his place, displacing those coverage kind of changes, maneuvering the quarterback's eyes at the last second or as after the snap, as the quarterback is dropping back, the defense is clouding into something different. All of those disguises and kind of tricks that coordinators throw at players, that makes it difficult on young players. Now, Dart is a studier. He's intelligent. He reps these things all the time. He is not intimidated. He is a competitor. So you have to love all those things about him. And I think that he could handle an element of that. of that regular season challenge when thrown at him. Michael thinks 7 wins. Schedule is crazy, but league changes year to year. A2 says, no respect for the CFL. P.S. It gave you Warren Moon and Doug Flutie. That's right. Stefano says, hey, Pat, if the Giants start 0-3, do you think they will consider putting Dart in? I think he'll be in before they fall to 0-3. Like, he might not start one of those games, but I think he will play if they're on that trajectory, even prior to the end of the Kansas City game. Think about it. That Kansas City game that's going to be the home opener. And so if the Giants were 0-2 in that game, playing the Chiefs and struggling, the crowd's going to want Jackson Dart, and they're going to get him. Colvin says, could this be Kafka's last season in New York? Yes. I mean, I think the odds are that it is, whether it's Dable and the staff getting fired or whether it's the offense, looking significantly improved. I think definitely a high likelihood that Kafka would, if they had, so let's say, remember in 2022, they made the playoffs with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, and Kafka was the play caller, right? As the first season as the offensive coordinator with the Giants. He returns, of course. We've seen everything that's happened. Play calling gets ripped away from him by Dable, all that. This season, if they had a season like that, or even less than that, but successful enough that Kafka's name got hot, yes, I would expect him to leave. Let's see, because his name's been on the coaching circuit every year, even when he hasn't been, either calling plays or scoring a lot of points. GCN says, Pat, people watch how bad Wilson was in Denver, cut and took the $85 million cap hit. Steelers dumped him 0-6 down the stretch. Yeah, that's the thing. What are you going to get on Sunday? Got another super chat in the queue. Patrick Evans says, Pat, I was wondering what your thoughts on Turbo getting sent to the practice squad. I would rather have him more than Devin Singletary. They like Singletary as a veteran presence. Also and like leader in their room and offense. Also, they just invested money in him after letting Saquon walk, and they're paying him real money. And even though he's not their best running back by any stretch, the Giants don't like to admit mistakes in that type of situation. They like to ride it out and hope that it turns around. And, I think with Turbo being dropped down to the practice squad and then returns to the team, here he is still in the building, still on the roster, still able to be elevated and play for them. That is the Giants calculating correctly that they're not going to lose that player by demoting or, and cutting that player and then having him practice squad eligible, but also eligible to sign from somewhere else. Accurate calculation by them. I would just say this in agreeing with you on this, Patrick. The Giants need explosive plays. That's what they need. They need explosive plays. So when they talk about how much better they think the quarterbacks are, or the line helps the quarterbacks helps the line, what receivers they're encouraged about, whatever it is they're talking about on offense, it all comes back to, can they generate explosive plays? And if they feel like they're more likely to generate explosives, that helps them. So if that's Russell Wilson deep ball, Jackson Darts keeping his eyes downfield, Jameis Winston being a backup who can still chuck it deep, and Neighbors, Slayton, a guy like Bo Collins can help you stretch the field. All of those things are reasons why those players making the team matters and makes sense. Those are also reasons why Turbo Miller was on my 53-man roster, because he can take a screen pass and turn it from what looks like a 5-yard loss into an 8-yard gain. Now, he is a player who, there is a level of player that, as was asked about with Jackson Dart, it was like, okay, does this player look better because he's going against 2s and 3s? I definitely think Turbo is a guy that if he's playing against 1s, he's not going to look to you the same way he looks against those 2s and 3s, for sure. As far as that, what the speed element looks like compared to what he's running from. But he does have juice that none of those other running backs have. Now, all those running backs that made the team obviously have tons of strengths and some great traits in their own right. But I'm with you. I think Turbo earned a right to be in the mix. Wow, Jonathan Hart jumps in and says the Commanders are going to smack the Giants on Sunday. Giants are a quarterback away from being good, though. All right, Jonathan, I appreciate that dissenting take. Thank you so much for being here. Let's see. A2 says, sorry if you addressed this already, but what's up with Andrew Thomas? Is he ever coming back? Is he ever going to play a full season? Ouch. My take on that, A2, is he'll be back early this season, but he's going at his pace. You know, whether it was the first surgery that he had on his ankle prior to fixing it the following offseason, or the hamstring where he came back too early to practice and aggravated it a couple years ago. I think Andrew now is just taking things into his own hands. He's trying to do the right thing so that he will not be removed from the field. He's always been committed on the rehab element of it and cognizant and kind of thoughtful about it. But he knows that what he's done to this point hasn't worked. And so my best read on the situation is that he is being as cautious as possible, and that, yes, the Giants team is involved, the training staff, the strength staff. He's got doctors involved as well. But I view this as Thomas is taking matters into his own hands and has decided, listen, it's going to take however long it needs to take for me to, when I get back on the field, I feel most confident that I'm not going to be removed from it. So if he misses the first 2 games but can play in the final 15, then it turns out that, that was the right approach. I think ultimately, A2, I just don't think he's played enough football to thrust him into this week 1 game. It doesn't make any sense to me how that could happen based on how little he has done. Certainly it's concerning that whatever the Giants want to say, like they're avoiding, they're so PR conscious and social media conscious, Joe Shane on down, like they're avoiding words like setback and, anything that's going to sound like something's wrong. Right. But certainly the original timeline of him to be back on the field and playing football, I mean, we have blown past that. And now it's just a question of being smart enough that Andrew feels it's fully healthy so that he's not risking anything once he returns. So it's he's trying to be prudent and cautious, but obviously it's disconcerting to be going against Washington without him for sure. Let's see. Luann says, Daboll will not be fired. He is a player's coach. He knows how to coach. And if he goes, I stop watching this team. Tired of changing coaches. I hear you. Changing coaches has been exhausting. H-Town says, health and wealth to all. What's up, H-Town? Michael says, youngest quarterback in the NFL next year. Puts it only where his wide receiver can get it. Different arm angles. I knew he was good, and I'm still crazy impressed. I think the Jets and the Saints will regret not taking Dart for a long time. Interesting. Yeah, no, he's been exciting to watch so far. There's no doubt about it. Neil says, thinking strategically, what's your point of view on the Giants' long-term outlook next 3 to 5 years? What are the 1 or 2 things no one's talking about that needs addressing? Interesting. Neil, I think the offensive line, I think that they have to continue to hammer the offensive line with draft picks. Looking at the Thomas situation, obviously left tackle is going to be a position they need to eye significantly. I mean, already the injuries seem like enough of a concern that you need to go draft one. But certainly if something were to recur this year and it again compromises another season for one of your cornerstone players in your franchise left tackle, and it's not just, left tackle. Like if Schmitz doesn't have a strong year this year, then you're looking at, most likely needing to reinvest in center. Your best guards right now, Runyon has some years ahead of him. Van Roten is much older. They don't have a strong right guard option really at all on the team. Illuminor, I think, is a guy who you saw some encouraging ball last year, but you need to see more. I just think that the O-line, as much as a lot of people are more excited about this one than one of years past, they need to reinvest in it because they need youth on that line. And also, it's still not strong enough as is. So I think the long-term outlook of it, especially with Jackson Dart, hopefully being a guy who's your next franchise quarterback for years to come, if you now have your QB, now you got to go protect him. Now you got to go sign the big fellas up front, and can continue to build around number 6 at QB. So that's where the long-term outlook starts with me. I think that on defense, you've really attacked the edge positions with talent and explosiveness, and you have a mixture of youth and veteran, and then there's kind of Kayvon right in the middle. Burns, Carter, Thibodeau. So you really attacked that. I think I would go again to the defensive front, the defensive line. Yes, Dexter's a great player. You need more than him. They did draft Darius Alexander this year. You hope that he turns into that. But I think you have to continue to throw bodies at those lines of scrimmage. I think that's where the NFL is won or lost. And it's always been won or lost, but certainly in the last few years, the running game is back, whether it's the running quarterbacks or whether it's teams like the Eagles grounding and pounding with a big back like Saquon, who's a home run hitter. You just have to be able to win those lines of scrimmage and compete. These seasons are only getting longer, so you need rotations. You need fresh bodies. It's not just about having 1 or 2 studs at the top of those groups, anymore. And I think the other long-term outlook, Neil, from a big picture standpoint, the evaluation is not just of what do they need for which players on their roster. I think overall, it's also thinking strategically. The Giants have to decide whether, like John Mara has to decide whether the process that he says that he favors internally of Joe Schoen and his staff, if that's not resulting in results, I think the long-term outlook needs to be a refocus on why are you valuing process more than wins? I think that the being enamored with an operation that looks more advanced than what Dave Gettleman was running, that is not a good reason to kind of double down on a process. I think what you have to do is ultimately commit to results matter here. Like that is what matters for the New York Giants, winning games. And that needs to be the priority. And however you get there, whatever people you employ for that, and whoever you need to jettison for that, that's what you have to do. I would also say that in the big picture, Neil, defensively, personnel-wise, listen, he's not coming back. He's not here anymore. But having Martindale on this staff was a real win. And having that head coach of your defense there and what they were able to do when Martindale was on the team, that was something that, listen, Shane Bowen has a chance to replicate, has a chance to do. But even if it's on a new staff, if this staff doesn't stick, or if it's on the same staff and it might be Bowen himself or a different coordinator. But I think you also are really hoping for, on both sides of the ball, schematic advantages coming from the coordinators calling the plays. You didn't have that last year from Dable as the offensive coordinator or Bowen as the defensive coordinator. So you ultimately need that. You need schematic advantages and a stronger approach to teaching, learning, and applying situational football in games when it matters most. Great question, Neil. Big Texas football putting Big Bill in place for his debut. TCU Tar Heel Destroyers, says H-Town. GCN thinks Dable and Shane will be fired. They brought in Wilson. They keep saying the long ball, he does nothing else. 3 Super Bowl coaches dumped him. GCN not a Wilson fan. Let's see. Right. Yes. Liz Frank is serious injury. Yeah. Well, yeah. Andrew had said in December or January that he expected to be on the field well ahead of where we are now. A2. Mike C says losing Parsons didn't hurt the Cowboys much. Interesting take, Mike C. I do think that one thing I do believe about that trade, Mike, I'm glad you brought it back to that. I do believe that, my first thought when I saw the trade, because, I think a lot of people were surprised they traded Parsons. I was not. Thought he was getting traded for a while. I think that my first reaction, not kidding, in my own mind, I said to myself, good trade for the Cowboys. Now, I said that because they got 2 first-round picks. Now, granted, the Packers' first-round pick, at least for this coming year, should be in the 20s. So it's maybe even closer to a high second than a first. So if you look at it that way, then you're like, okay, a high second and a 1 plus Kenny Clark for Parsons, you start to feel different. And I am never a fan of trading away good players, getting great players off of your team. Like, you don't get rid of great players. It's just good teams don't get rid of great players. You just don't. Giants learned it with Saquon. They got rid of McKinney, who has continued to get better. Cowboys getting rid of Parsons. So you don't get better in the short term by getting rid of great players. But I will agree with you, Mike, that like if I'm Brian Schottenheimer and I'm like, hey, as long as I listen to Jerry, I'll be here for a while. Do I want to win games? Yeah, of course. But does giving me 2 future first round picks on top of what we already have and giving me a long leash as, the next Dallas Cowboys head coach, like, hey man, that's, I'll play ball with that. How much, pay me how many $1 million a year? Still got Dak Prescott. I got CeeDee Lamb. I got George Pickens. I got DeMarvion Overshawn and Trayvon Diggs. We'll be fine, So 2 sides of that. Joey B, what's up, Joey B? He says, he says, I'm here. I just crushed my fantasy draft. That probably means he got Jackson Dart in the 5th. He says, I'm going to Washington, sitting row 1 on the Giants side. Huge Giants tailgate in Lot E. Everyone wearing blue. Pat, we're back, baby. Let's meet up Saturday. Joey B, bring in the energy, crushed his fantasy draft, and still jumped in the Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard. Joey B, die hard. Joey B, you missed it. We announced at the beginning the Talkin Ball merch store is live. The link is in the chat. Joey B, longtime supporter, man. Really appreciate you. And, we're going to be having merch giveaways on the chat. Merch giveaways, just like we have our Hooks, Rubs, and Spices trivia giveaways. We got a winter hat, baseball hat, T-shirt. We got a sweatshirt coming. We got a pint glass. So the Talkin Ball merch store is up and humming, baby. Let's go. H-Town says, Russ can get the right play made to the offensive line. Holds up the defense, needs to improve. Okay. Russ can get the play right. Need the O-line to hold up. The defense needs to improve in the secondary, but hopefully the Giants get back to dominating the trenches. It's the only way to win. Jonathan still bringing the heat, says, are you traveling to see that L to the Commanders? I love a little chirping going on. Do the Giants have any players who could start on the Eagles? Yes, Neighbors could start on the Eagles. John Runyon Jr., I think could start on the Eagles, depending on who's healthy at guard and who is not. Let me think. Who else? I'll stop there. William says, if you had to keep one of the 2, Dable or Shane, who do you keep? For me, it's Dable. William, that's a very difficult question. I view them as both party to the failures of this organization over the last 4 years. I think that Shane is the puppet master to it all, and I think that he is not devoid of blame in any way of anything for the most part that has happened. There were some of those staffing issues and the dealings with the coaching staff that's on Dable. But by and large, everything else, I think the personnel shortcomings of this regime are under-discussed and underestimated and underplayed. I believe that they are very strong at public relations and have steered the conversation in different directions. To say one of the two, though, I think, listen, I've said this about them for a long time. I think if they succeed, they both deserve credit. And if they fail, they both deserve blame. That's how I feel about them. Uh, 17 says, I'm assuming that if Neal doesn't step up his game this year, he's gone. I would assume so. I think that's safe. Is that like the Sixers process? Yeah, right. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices says, Happy Labor Day, Pat and Chad. I'm watching my TCU Horned Frogs beat up on Belichick. Go Frogs and go Giants. Hope y'all are having a great holiday. That's Jared, our diehard Giants fan, big supporter of the podcast. He owns and operates Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. We are grateful to have Hooks, Rubs, and Spices as our sponsor here on the Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard podcast. Week 1 of the NFL season is here. Giants, Commanders, pumped to be talking to you guys, going on an hour and 40, and we are rolling on here in the chat on YouTube. That reminds us it's time with Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, big Texas barbecue flavor for the Giants trivia question. So here's how we do the Giants trivia question. I ask you a question. The first person to enter the right answer in the chat gets some Hooks, Rubs, and Spices free flavor delivered directly to your door. So I'm going to ask a Giants trivia question now. When I ask it, you're going to type the correct answer into the comment section, and whoever is first wins the Hooks, Rubs, and Spices chat. And then we will make sure we get your information and get that product out to you. All right, here is your Giants trivia question. The last time the Giants beat the Washington Commanders, who scored the final Giants touchdown of the game? The last time the Giants beat the Washington Commanders, who scored the final Giants touchdown of the game? All right. And as we wait for those answers to come in, Joey B calling me out on skipping a super chat. My bad. I think I missed it for like 1 or 2 questions there, Joey B. Apologies. What a diehard. Joey B, the absolute man. Yeah, I had an idea for some of these chats. Tell me what you guys think of this. I was thinking about Hooks, Rubs. We definitely need to get Jared a Talkin Ball t-shirt. Definitely need to get one out to you. No doubt about that. What would you guys be interested in, like a talk radio style setup where, like, let's say I said, okay, if you purchase a gift in the chat or a certain level of super chat, that you could come on the broadcast and be like a split screen with me, for and ask a question and, talk with me on screen for a minute or two before jumping off. Is that something you guys would be interested in? Like I said, it would probably be, like, hey, for a super chat or a gift or whatever it is, then you can jump on screen and then we do that. Let me know if that is something you guys be interested in. That was an idea I had the other day, just to further incorporate and add more people on screen and make you guys feel more part of the conversation. But yeah, just let me know, because I'd be curious to see if that's something that fans would like. All right, let's see. All right, so the right answer is, it looks like we got 2 winners. I know Joey B's all over the trivia questions. He is the man. The correct answer is Isaiah Simmons. So, Jared, Joey B has won before, so we're definitely going to give him the win. But I think we should also give M626M the win, because he and Joey B jumped in right there at 10:47 with Isaiah Simmons as the name. And that is the correct answer. Isaiah Simmons with an interception return, playing for Wink Martindale's Giants defense. 54-yard interception return of Sam Howell to seal a 31-19 Giants win at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland on November 19th, 2023. So that is the correct answer. So here's what you guys are going to do. Joey B, I believe we have your information, but M62M, M626M, here's what you're going to do. You're going to send a direct message to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is PL on NFL. And you're going to send me your name, your address, and your email. So if you send me your name, your address, and your email, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices will be sending you some free product for you to try on your tailgate, your home gate, wherever you are getting ready for your Giants, your NFL games. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices is going to bring that bold seasoning flavor, all natural, directly to your grill. Like I said, my favorite is brisket. The smoke and sweetness is delicious. This flavor is right here over my shoulder. There's the midnight. There's tons of great flavors, and I know Jared is going to pick one that you are going to love. But please give us some feedback too. Hooksrub.com is the website where you can purchase all of these great seasonings and rubs, as well as some awesome swag. I love the swag. I know I say that every time I talk about it. Really, like, it's not even what Jared got into this to sell, but I just love his gear. So I'm always, I think he's probably looking at me like, why are you always talking about the gear? And it's like, because I love it. That's why. Like I show you guys the brisket shirt all the time. Like I have one for every member of my family. Like they're amazing shirts. It's like the perfect summer cookout shirt. But anyway, it's hooksrub.com. Use the code Talkin Ball there, and you'll get 15% off whatever you buy there at hooksrub.com. And follow them on Instagram. Follow Jared on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. He's got a channel, tons of great content, tons of like instructional content about cooking, how to use the rubs, different recipes, all kinds of things. And, with NFL season and the tailgating getting underway, only much more to come. So M626M, you're going to send me direct message on Instagram. You're going to send me your name, address, and your email, and you will receive some Hooks, Rub, and Spices soon. Joey B, also you, two-time winner now of the Hooks, Rubs trivia. Let's see. Yeah, well, Jared's in the chat, so he sees it, but I will ping him as well, and we'll get some additional product, one of the different flavors, out to you as well. Nice work, guys. Nice work. Thanks for participating. All right. Let's see. Joey B says, I got one, M6. It's delicious, bro. Oh, send me the shirt and send him the hooks. Love it. Love it. Nice work, guys. Nice work. Great sportsmanship. Let's see. All right. What do we got? Bring your shirt week 1, Joey B. All right. Let's see. H-Town says, what's going to be the secondary lineup as you see it? Being starters, will Flott, Belton get snaps? But what's going to happen starter-wise? I think it's going to be a Debo, Flott on the outside with Drew in the slot, Drew Phillips in the slot, Nubin and Holland at safety, and then Belton will be on as the 6th DB when they go into dime. That is the way I see it playing out. Deonte Banks, does that become a rotation with him and Flott at times to keep guys fresh? I think it's more likely you pick the CB1 and your number one is your number one. So I think it's just going to be Flott and it's going to be Banks on the bench until needed. No one has told me that definitively, but that's my read on seeing how the preseason shook out. A2C says losing Parsons not the end of the world, but the return is brutal in my opinion. Yeah, that's the thing is like if the first this year becomes a very late, very very late first, it just it doesn't feel the same as what it could have been. I remember when I first thought he was definitely going to get traded, I texted someone and said, "What do you think? 3 1s?" And their response was probably 2. And so that they were right, 2 plus a player. Let's see. Joey B says the hooks, rubs, and spices. His son said that it tastes like Texas Roadhouse steak on a burger. Let's see. He says, Pat, you are 100% correct about Shane. It is total eyewash. A2 says, silly question. How's your relationship with Daboll this year? Any lingering hate? No, I mean, it's not personal. There are times where it thinks or it looks like that, but it's not personal. I mean, if he wins games and their football team is good, then there won't be any animosity because there'll be fewer critical stories written about because they'll be making fewer mistakes. Like it all, a lot of wins breeds a lot of praise and analysis of why they're winning and what's going well and that kind of stuff. And a lot of losing leads to exposés on what's going wrong and why and who's to blame and is someone going to get fired, right? So I think Daboll understands that. I mean, our relationship is fine. It's a professional one, but it's fine. I think, the going back to that question, asking him about his job security after week 2 in Washington last year, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Part of what upset him, of course, he doesn't want to be questioned like that in that moment, but that question was born out of knowledge that he had a short leash there if they kept slipping. And really that win in Cleveland saved his job as well as the late one over the Colts that came out of nowhere, like we were talking earlier. But that win in Cleveland, like if they fell to 0-3 there and continued to slip there and went, into week 4, week 5, like he wouldn't be the coach right now. So that question was, I know it's early, but I also know the lay of the land here. H-Town says Dex Thomas healthy. It's a chance to at least win 6 games this year if they're healthy. If they were fully healthy, yeah, I mean, listen, one thing I do think is like you look at the Giants' schedule this year, there are some unknowns that can work in your favor too, right? It's like, hey, the Chargers lost their tackle. Look, the Saints are on their schedule. They look bad. The Niners are a team that's very banged up. The Bears quarterback looks like, a total wild card right now. The Patriots are a very young team with a second-year quarterback. Are the Raiders, even with some added talent and a better quarterback like Geno Smith, are they going to do it, or are they just going to be still like a mistake-prone team? So there's different unknowns that can go in your favor. Certainly, Brian Schottenheimer as a first-time head coach as well. Always look at those teams. Not that the Bears are going to be a bad team or pushovers and not improved, but you have Ben Johnson, first-year head coach in Chicago. You have Brian Schottenheimer, first-year head coach with Dallas. Any team that has a first-year head coach, first-year operation, they're kind of turning things over, especially a guy like Schottenheimer who's never managed a game on his own, and it's early in the season, week 2. Like that can be a vulnerable spot for those coaches. So that can present opportunity as well. Let's see. Pat, what is the schedule for the season? Monday, Thursday, and 1 hour after the game. Yeah, so for Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, we're going to be post-game every Giants game, home or away. So I'll be a post-game live from the Giants-Commanders game at Northwest Stadium on Sunday from the press box after speaking to the players and the coaches in the locker room. Yeah, GCN, generally I go live about an hour and a half after the game ends. Sometimes it pushes closer to 2 hours, but I try to keep it to 90 minutes after the game ends. That's because, of course, I still work for the Daily News as well. And so I'm doing reporting for the Daily News. I'm writing for the Daily News. And we're also doing this YouTube live to connect with you, the fans, and bring you the information immediately. So I appreciate all of your guys' patience after those games, but I promise you it ends up being worth it because we have all of the information direct from the locker room, from the players, private conversations I have with players and sources in the Giants and around the league. And I can bring that information direct to you guys after the games. And then, yes, Mondays, planning on Thursdays. Again, GCN, I'll confirm with you if it's going to be a Thursday every week. I'm still looking into whether there's any other times or days that could be more optimal because obviously we have Thursday night football as well. There are some Thursdays where it doesn't matter that you're eating into a half of that to do a chat, but there's other Thursdays where you really want to watch the football and see the game. But yes, our plan for this season is Mondays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, here on YouTube channel PL on NFL, Talking Ball with Pat Leonard live. And we will talk Giants. We'll talk plenty of NFL. We'll talk betting lines as well. Like I said, my bookie rolling out the red carpet for sports bettors again this season here with Talking Ball live with Pat Leonard. And I'll have my Pat's picks for you guys to talk and discuss. We'll talk about my season predictions coming up, as well as award winners, my division finishers, and everything in between. That'll be coming on Thursday in our next chat. Let's see. All right. Philip says, what do you think of Dane Ball as a game day coach, not including his performance as a play caller? What are his strengths and weaknesses? Philip, I think his intensity can be his strength and his weakness. So, for example, you look at the Titans game in the first season as a rookie head coach, when they went for that 2-point conversion there, he had such conviction in what they had. He was confident in them. He showed confidence in the team. He gave the ball to his best player in the biggest spot. He showed moxie and some energy that made it easy for the players to get behind what he was selling. And so in that way, an investment in an attitude and a mindset and demonstrating that and putting it into practice, I think when he's at his best, that is a strength. But it's a weakness when it overcomes him and colors his ability to relate to his staff, to manage relationships with assistants, to be able to keep his composure on the sideline, and also ultimately in general to make sound decisions in key moments when it comes to is it a timeout? Is it a lineup decision? Is it a fourth down call versus a field goal? What is the situational football element of how they're coaching the team to complement offense and defense together and to handle those critical moments? Those are the weaknesses and the points where I worry about him the most. Now, what you need to see be more of a strength is the offense's operation. This is Mike Kafka's offense now. He's running the offense. He's calling the plays. But Dable, obviously, as the head coach, is involved in the game plan, and we know that he's meddled even when he hasn't been the lead play caller and has even taken it from Kafka at times. So that'll be something to continue to watch. And again, like it always comes back to with Dable is he does relate. Like Luann said earlier, she's right about this. Luann is right about this, is that he is a player's coach. He does relate to and spend a lot of time on the player relationships. But he struggles sometimes with the staff relationships, and he struggles with being able to adequately manage the entire team, staff and players and personnel and game together. Like somebody said earlier, let him manage the game as the head coach and not be the play caller. But the interesting thing is he actually struggled very mightily, in a lot of ways as the overall CEO head coach, which is part of the reason why he ended up dipping back into the full-time play calling. It was hard for him to be that, be the person who sometimes had to be the fly on the wall, kind of watching and hoping everything turned out the way they had hoped during their planning during the week and their meetings. And he struggled to delegate without getting his hands dirty and kind of diving all in and changing the dynamic and gumming it up. I hope that answered your question, Philip. It was a good question by you. A2 likes the idea of getting people on camera in exchange for whether it's a super chat, gift, whatever it is. All right. Joey B likes it as well. Joey B, if anybody deserves a Talkin Ball shirt, it's you. There's no doubt about it. Joe says, Pat, have the Washington radio guy on Talkin Ball and see what they think about their team. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I was going to actually have one of the Washington guys on this week, so maybe I could bring him on a live. Would you guys prefer that, to bring a guest on a live on Thursday rather than or maybe at a different time rather than just recording an episode. Oh, M626M says I don't have an Instagram. M6, if you have a let's see. M6, do you have X or Twitter? So put your Twitter account into the queue right now. And we'll connect there and you can DM me there. Here, just pop it in. Let's see. All right. H-Town says what? No Banks? Well, I'm just saying, like in that layout, where is Banks playing there? You know, if you have a Debo, Drew Phillips, and Flott on the field, and you have the two safeties, you're going into a dime. You know, Belton has versatility to play down in the box, deeper in coverage. Yeah, I would see him as more the guy there. Jonathan says, Pat, you should do something with Rio Robinson or Juan Gotti. The Commanders content creators are trying to do content with Giants creators all week. I appreciate you throwing that out, Jonathan. Take a look at that. Patrick says he would do the split screen super chat idea. All right. Sounds like something we should try out. All right. M6 is going to email Hooks. Sounds good. All right. Yeah. Email Hooks then. They'll take care of it. H-Town says, can the run game be key to staying competitive against Washington as their defensive front is not the best? Yeah, certainly, because if Washington is vulnerable there, yes, but also protects Russell Wilson, helps the offensive line. Anything you can do to help Russell Wilson and the offensive line just have some pressure off of them for some regular drop back passing and not in too obvious of passing downs. Wilson is not going to escape the way that he used to be able to. So that's number one, first and foremost, protecting your quarterback. Jonathan thinks Washington's new defensive line will be much improved. Interesting. We will see. Jonathan and Joey B talking some trash. I love it. Let's see. Jonathan says, I just found this chat, probably won't be back, to be honest. Jonathan, why are you hating? You've been a good contributor. We love, by the way, to hear, to talk all NFL, to talk not just Giants. I mean, we talk the whole league. And I think we've talked a good amount of Commanders throughout this chat. Maybe you jumped in a little late, but we definitely talked about like some X's and O's and some reasons why Washington is both a formidable opponent, but also the Giants could have an opportunity here. I definitely think, Jonathan, that they're almost a touchdown favorite in this game, right? The Commanders. And there's a reason for that. It's because of what Jayden Daniels did last year as he's one of the best, brightest young stars in the NFL. I mean, this guy and his team destroyed the Detroit Lions on the road as the number one overall seed in the NFC last year, got to the NFC Championship in his rookie season. So yeah, no, I definitely think, yeah. A2 says you took the time to type that out. That's funny. No, but Jonathan, listen, we are thrilled that you're here. I'm putting your comment on the queue right now because it kind of those types of comments fuel me. I like it. All right. Let's see. H-Town says, love to see 10 plus wins, but it's really a brutal schedule. They have to bring the dog out on offense and defense, play physically, smash mouth football, do all the little things consistently to win. Let's see. Was Dable the primary culprit in the Martindale fiasco? Yes, he was. Yeah, they fired the Wilkinses and tried to cut Martindale's legs out from under him, and he resigned because he wasn't going to stand for that. And then they tried to make it seem like something happened differently than the way it did. But yeah, a lot of extensive coverage I did of that in the New York Daily News. Huge expose in the Daily News about Martindale, Kafka, Daboll, and the mismanagement of the coach. A2 says, can you ship stuff to Canada, Pat, or has Trump put a gazillion % tariff on that too? P.S. I want a shirt too. Yeah, we definitely got to do some merch giveaways. I have the link to the site up top, but definitely have to do some merch giveaways to some of our diehards. Absolutely, A2. So stay tuned on that. Wilson already paid $8.5 million by the Giants, so the Giants will be able to trade him. Yes, M6, please email me and Jared for sure. I'm P.Leonard at nydailynews.com. You can email me there. P.Leonard at nydailynews.com. Let's see. Jonathan says, no, I just found you today. You guys are cool. I'm just here because you're playing us. You definitely know your football respect. I appreciate that, Jonathan. Yeah, I've actually had I've had plenty of Commanders guests on. Like I've had JP Finley on. Actually did an episode with him a couple of weeks ago, Jonathan. If you go over maybe 3 episodes ago, and this was when Terry McLaurin wasn't yet signed, but we talked all about Washington and kind of tried to preview what this matchup could look like going back to mid-August. And then may even have a Commanders guest on this week, either on Thursday's chat or on a guest podcast in the next couple of days. So I would bookmark us, turn your notifications on, and stay tuned because I promise to have more content related to your team. A2 says his prediction is 10-7. Have a gut feeling this team is pretty good. Let's see. Jonathan says Russ is finished and Dart is ready. How is the O-line? Giants offense is trash. The defense will keep them in games. Yeah, that's the bottom line with the Giants. They need to score points. Let's see. Can Slayton be a 1,000-yard receiver or Robinson emerge as a pass catcher and asset for the team this year as Wilson can get them the ball early and often? I think Slayton has more of a chance to have a bigger year than Wandale. I think Wandale is going to continue to make some plays, but then struggle to make others. I think he is a valuable player in situations, but I do believe that as an undersized slot, there's a limit to what they can get out of him and what Russell Wilson can also get out of him at that position. So, that's why I've suggested in the past that Neighbors could move into the slot more, but I'm not, having watched them the way that they've deployed him in camp and what he's done, and having more conversations about that, I don't see that as the solution there. So, yeah, I think Slayton is the answer there. Slayton would be the guy that Russ is going to try to unlock deep. I mean, you look at, Slayton's been consistent, in that like 750, 780 yard range. If you think of Slayton as like the Calvin Austin of this offense, I mean, he's more accomplished than Calvin Austin, but I just mean from what Pittsburgh looked like last year. And if he could be the Austin to the Neighbors, George Pickens of the Steelers offense of a year ago, that would be the best way to describe, I think, maybe the potential impact that he could have and how they could deploy him in the offense with Russ as the quarterback. But you guys have been awesome tonight, man. We've gone. I was thinking maybe, hey, it's Labor Day. People are kind of still dragging off of their final summer drinks, and we might have a small crowd, but great turnout tonight. Great participation. We went over 2 hours and couldn't do this without any of you. Also, thank you again to our sponsors, MyBookie, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Jared being in here in the chat obviously also adds a ton to it. Thank you so much, Jared, for your support. And Salaretta for Men in Midland Park. Remember, you can see the code scrolling at the bottom for boomchaga.com, for mybookie.ag for all your sports betting, and your casino work. And then also for Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, hooksrub.com. Use the code Talkin Ball. Remember to support our sponsors. The best way to support us is to support our sponsors. That is the best way to support us, is to support our sponsors. That's my bookie, that's Hooks, that's Boom Chaga, and that is Sal Loretta for Men. Jared says, thanks, Pat, and chat, go G-Men. A2 says, great stream. And I want to give a shout out also to our super chatters. Have to say to our super chatters, thank you so much. Biondo Contracting came in big with a 50 spot. Really grateful for that. Patrick Evans, Tuto checked in several times. Patrick checked back in, and Joey B supporting the chat as always. Joey B always chipping in big time to the chat. Can't thank you guys enough. So yeah, we just had a little short circuit there. But as I was saying, super grateful to everybody who is a super chatter and who has been supporting us, on this channel, because we couldn't do this without you. And Biondo Contracting, again, leading the way. But Patrick, Tuto, Joey B, all of you really, really just putting your money where your mouth is, as they say. I'll wrap this up by answering the last question I see come in here. Where was that question? Oh, I saw somebody asking about Parcells as compared to Daboll. All good. We've gone 2 hours and almost 15 minutes. Thank you so much for being here. Week 1 is upon us. We will be coming back in, expect on Thursday at 9 p.m., maybe a second half watch of Eagles Cowboys as we digest what we've seen on the first opening night of the NFL season and what we believe is to come in the NFC East for the Giants as they go to Washington to take on the Commanders on Sunday. We'll obviously have news and information for you guys on all my social media channels covering the Giants and the NFL this week. My handle on Twitter or X is PLeonardNYDN, and then everywhere else, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Threads, it's PL on NFL. This has been the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard podcast, live here to open week 1 of the 2025 NFL season. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Check out the merch store. The link is at the top of the comments section, and we will see you here next time. Be well. Take care. Keep talking ball.